And okay, let me get mine here. Okay, you may have to send me the copy. Let's see more.
Well, I think
So
since you
you have cloud? You have cloud?
yes, I have
Oh,
cloud. I have a
okay.
lot of space on clouds, and I think
Okay.
since you sent me the invite, you were probably going to be the one getting the recording. But we'll see.
Okay. Okay. Well, at least it's recording. Okay. So we'll get going here. There's a little bit of related news, which I don't, I'll just sort of briefly mention here. Um, okay. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hang on. Let me get to Facebook here. Holy cow. Let's see. Go to Facebook. Live stream on Facebook. Okay. We're going live to Facebook here. Continue as Grant. Go live. Okay. Preparing to live stream.
Yeah, it's going live. There we go.
Okay.
So let me
Good
close
morning, good
this.
afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron, and I welcome all the people that are listening. And hopefully, we have a bunch of people that'll be joining us on Facebook. I have a very special guest today. He's been on my show or my little podcast a number of times. I think he's one of the smartest people around. Uh, saw an event and made an entire career out of one calculation. And I even at one point sent his stuff to one of the Nobel Prize people in the world who's supposed to be into paranormal phenomena. He didn't have any interest in even taking a look at it. So again, we're going to try again today. We're going to put this stuff out, and eventually people are going to catch on that the message that my guest, Jimmy Blanchette, has, who is going to be joining me today, is a very important message. In a related sort of message, this just happened. Um, Everybody's probably has heard the rumored story about 2027, 2026. The 2026 is based upon best-selling author Chris Bledsoe and his message from the lady, and that event is supposed to take place on uh, Easter of 2026. And I contacted Chris last night, and I said, "Chris, are you going to be at the pyramid and at the Sphinx on the 26th, just before sunrise?" He said, "Yes, I'll be there." I said, "Well, I'll talk to Desta. We may join you." So anybody who's interested in going to see this event, if anything happens there, Easter of, I think it's April 5th in Egypt, let me know. Desta's a tour guide. She'll set up all this kind of stuff. And it's like you buy the lottery ticket. You're probably not going to win, but maybe something will happen. And it's an interesting place to see. So in related event, what Jimmy Blanchette started on, and he'll sort of explain today, and I guess he can sort of give me a basic outline at the beginning. This all ties into the pyramids as well. It ties into the message that was received at Rendlesham Forest when Jim Penniston touched the side of the craft. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about the interpretation of that message, and it all links into the pyramids. And Chris Bledsoe, in the event he had, he was gone for 4 hours, and that's where he said they took him, was to the pyramids. And he said to me it seemed like it was 4 months he was gone. So it's a very interesting topic. Everybody's always interested in the pyramids and who built them and why they built them. And I think Jimmy Blanchette has the best idea that I've seen in terms of the fact that if you actually look at what's actually going on and the message that was given, everything is deducible about the universe based upon these formulas. They just go one after another after another. And Jimmy Blanchette is the guy who's linked them all together. So, Jimmy, welcome and thank you. We should have done this a little bit sooner, but we're here now, and you've got some new research that you've been working on. But basically, talk a little bit at the beginning about this sort of where this all started for you and how you got going down this road.
Hello, Grant. Well, thank you so much for inviting me on your show. It's always a pleasure and such an honor to be able to share this information with the folks out there. Well, really, just to briefly to summarize a bit my story here, I was always since childhood interested in physics, astronomy, UFO, non-human intelligence. I always felt a connection with the universe, really, and uh, fast forward, I had throughout my life several out of body experience um, of different configuration, if you will, and it's still happening as of today, to a lesser extent, I will say, lesser frequency, but it's still happening. And in 2013, if we fast forward, I became interested in a modality. I am a licensed amateur radio operator. So in 2013, I became interested in a modality called moon bounce communication, which consists in bouncing or scattering radio wave off the surface of the moon. So as it was a very exotic, challenging way of communication in the amateur radio field with a very as I said, very exotic. So I decided to get a radio station set up to be able to do this stuff. So I bought for tens of thousands of dollars of equipment, made my own antenna system. And, it's not the kind of stuff you buy at Walmart. Obviously, it's all homemade because it's just, you know, this kind of communication is just not very usual or regular. So I built my own antenna system, and throughout my life, actually, I was always interested in building antennas since my childhood. So I've been in this field for many, many years. And yeah, 2013, I got a station, a radio station set up, and I became interested in what people call CE5 or human initiated contact. And I said, why not using this capability I have developed over the years, the amateur radio capability to send a message out there, which I did. So I encoded a binary code message at the time, which was an invitation, which contained latitude, longitude, essentially coordinates of a specific location I will be on a given night, time and date. And I got to the site, broadcasted that invitation days prior to getting to the site. So I got to the site expecting nothing, obviously, because I was really not ready for that. And then when I got to the site, I started having interactions through my small radios that I had brought with me, and starting having sightings and all kind of high strangeness. And so this is how my story started, really. And then in 2000, this was 2017. So for the first years, I was really into the radio contact modality, which became known worldwide. I'm in contact with many experiencers worldwide who've adopted this technique and bought small handheld radios and doing their own stuff as well, and having great experiences, which they related to me through video evidence and stuff like that, and pictures. In 2021, I started having a lot of synchronicities related to harmonic 144. I didn't understand why at the time. It was all over the place, and I have some slides and pictures about this. And started digging, and I started essentially, since I have a pretty strong background in mathematics and all this stuff, I started exploring these harmonics, and I started realizing that these harmonics were connected to the work I was doing, the work with non-human intelligences. For instance, the frequency I had been somewhat randomly I chose randomly at the time to do my contact work. 144.1 megahertz happens to be the fundamental harmonic of light, or one of the key harmonic that drives the laws of the universe, and I'm going to show that in a few minutes. And also was working with harmonic 432, which is also very well known in the field, and was also one of these harmonics of creation. So I started connecting the dots and digging, doing the mathematics on it, and I started realizing that these harmonics were encoded all over the world in ancient secret sites, like the Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance. All the dimension of the Great Pyramid of Giza are perfectly tuned to these harmonics, 144, 432, and the golden ratio, which is, really at the root of all creations, is responsible for all fractality in the universe. Everything we see from the plant growth, the trees, to our cells, to our DNA, everything is connected to the golden ratio. All the proportions in our body, our teeth, our ears, everything. So So these three harmonics really, I quickly realized they were driving the universe, and were again, I saw that there was a universal language essentially that's very simple actually, but this universal language was in contained in all these non-human intelligence manifestation that I looked at, my own manifestation that I was able to record over the years, but also from other people that I've documented thoroughly, and also again encoded in all these ancient sacred sites around the world. So I understood that this was some kind of universal language that was being spoken, and contains this, I would say, different or new perspective on physics that's game changer. And I believe that's clearly the language that these non-human intelligences are using, not only to communicate, but also to drive the technology. I do have evidence of that. So that's what's been driving my work for the last since 2021 and since 2017, and kept growing exponentially. I mean, it's like a waterfall of information that keeps coming my way. I do have my slide decks contains almost 2,000 slides of material. So I'm working on a book now to try to unload all this stuff in a way that's that's understandable. And I will make this available for free in a PDF form as soon as I'm done with it. There's going to be a kind of book version of it as well. But to me, this information is very, very important to be communicated to the world, and I believe contains the keys to freedom, in a sense, freedom in terms of energy, transportation, able to travel the stars, and so on. So, and I do have a lot of evidence of it. And as we'll see, and I know, Grant, you wanted to do a show today, a bit of focus on the code, the Rendlesham code. So you'll see that this information is completely encoded also in the Rendlesham binary code that was communicated in 1980. So it's the same language. It's just the same stuff. And we even see that. I'm kind of having fun looking at the mainstream, like, the Sky Watchers and all this other stuff, and Skinwalker Ranch, because it's the same language. The same stuff's been communicated to them. And I have a couple of slides if you want to see it. It's fun. It's like they're playing with these teams of researchers, showing this stuff and probably waiting for them to wake up, and connect the dots. But it's black and white. It's the same stuff.
It's almost like this code was put into all the sacred sites and around the world like 10,000 years ago, and they didn't care how long it took. And it took 10,000 years, and suddenly some guy originally from Quebec, Canada, and in the United States suddenly gets it and starts to unravel it, and it all fits together. And once you're on the right track, you sort of get overwhelmed by material, because everything starts to make sense and everything, you see it in a different light. So this is almost like a time of awakening, as far as I can see it, where it's just so intricate, where everybody's looking at what are they here for, what's going on, and the message has been encoded in around the world for 10 or 20,000 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's always been there, and for some reason it looks like there have been cycles of to forget, right? Some kind of a planetary reset, catastrophe that reset everything, and then a new civilization emerge and start from scratch and have to remember the stuff, right? And so it's a bit of a situation, and this stuff has been encoded tens of thousands of years ago. If you look at the Göbekli Tepe and sites like that, have all this information. It's just, and there's been also clearly, I think, activities or efforts to hide this information from us from the regular people, in this field, because it contains the keys to freedom, contains the keys to power. It gives power, right? And so, it's very obvious. So I do have a lot of slides. We'll go.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, we'll go through it.
Sure. So you want to share, you go ahead and share a screen.
Yes.
And let's go ahead with your lid. And we'll link the other interviews that we did. We did a couple of interviews that got a lot of attention. So we'll link those interviews as well from the past.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we did in the past that people can go back to. So let me know if you can see the screen.
Yeah, there it is. Not full screen, but it's there.
Should be full screen. It's almost full screen on my end. Let's see here. And I'm gonna move this around. Give me a second here. Okay, so so as we'll see, the Rendlesham code is the same stuff, right? It's based on the same physics, And today we'll really just scratch the surface because there's so much information encoded in these coordinates that it will take probably more than one program. So I'll try to to cover
Okay,
some of it today, but I think should be revealing. And if we have an opportunity, we
we'll
we
do
can.
another one. You
Yeah,
bet. Sure. I think
awesome,
this is very important material to get out, even if it takes people 20 years to, to suddenly catch on. You've put it out, and when the time is right, and I think there's some people who are going to jump on this. So I'm
excellent.
willing to help you get all your material. I've always been very impressed.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you. All right. So again, so I have a lot of slides. I'm going to go quickly through them because I just want to provide visual also to what I'm talking about, because some of the stuff may be a little bit abstract sometimes.
Yeah.
But again, essentially, non-human intelligence have encoded, around the world in ancient sacred sites and in their manifestations, some universal language, and we see that it's mathematical, it's geometry, based on geometry and mathematics and harmonics. These are the three things that drives the universe. It works out perfectly, and it explains a lot. And as we'll see today, Grant, I mean, some of the greatest mystery in our physics right now, like the fine structure constant, for instance, or the origin, distribution and origin of dark matter, dark energy, and regular matter is still unknown, right? Why is our universe expanding the way it is, and the proportion of dark matter, dark energy? Because we know that our physics is not able to explain more than kind of 95% of the universe, right? It's just, it explains maybe 5%, which is the matter that we see, the physical matter we see. But what they had to make up what they call dark matter and dark energy to explain, the expansion of the universe,
Yeah.
to explain also why the stars are kind of, not escaping from our galaxy while we're spinning around, right? There's some
Yeah.
kind of gravitational field that glue everything together, so they had to create this extra gravity they call dark energy, dark
Yeah.
matter to glue. But as we'll see, I have an explanation for this, and it's encoded in this code in the research that I've done for the last several months and years. It's not very complicated, actually. It's very simple because, as we'll see, creation operates in the way that's the most simple and elegant. It's really simple and elegant. And when we follow that trail, logically, we mathematically and geometrically, we come up with a path that really explains everything, and it works out. So I'm going to show it in a minute.
Yeah. And yours is like 99.9, like you're almost like dead on to 100% when your calculations come out.
Yeah, typically it's a 99.9% and above accuracy. Sometimes there are small differences, and I start to understand why, because there are some underlying other rules that, if
Okay.
everything will be exactly the same, we will see just one thing, right? So there has to be some differences that, to create all the variety of the things we look at in our material world. And so
It's
there are
it's
under.
it's
Mhm.
it's better than the old explanation. If you've heard the Rupert Sheldrake joke, how much dark matter and energy is there in the universe? And the answer is just enough to make the equation work.
That's right. So, well, it really comes down to these three harmonics, these three numbers that I'm showing on the screen here: the harmonic 144, 432, and the golden ratio. We see at the bottom of the screen this equation. Really is it's very simple. And it really represents the division of one, right? It's how one, or the source creation, or singularity, or what some people could call the Big Bang, right, which
Yeah.
was a singularity, how it divides itself to create the physical world, the physical reality we live in. And the physical reality we live in is based on these harmonics: 144, 432, and golden ratio. It's just as simple as that. So it's really the division of source into these harmonics. And really, how we can see it is really to use units of distance and time that are compatible with geometry, because we know the universe is based on geometry. Everything we see around us is based on geometry. Everything has forms, shapes. If you go to the atomic scale, molecular scale, the crystals, it's all based on geometry, right? So everything is geometry. So we need to use, if we use distance, units of distance, instead of using the kilometer or the miles, if we use a unit of distance that is compatible with geometry, in this case, we use the nautical mile system. I'll explain why in a minute. Then we have access to this new vision, this view of the universe that's very different than looking at it, without it. So And for instance, the nautical mile system has been established long time ago, and there are 21,600 nautical miles to circle the globe, right, around the Earth. If you're at the equator and you count the number of nautical miles to circle the globe, it's gonna take 21,600 nautical miles to do a
Okay.
full circle of the Earth. Now, in geometry, it's the same thing. In geometry, to do a full circle, a 360-degree circle, you're going to have to go through 21,600 minutes of arc, right? That's the unit in geometry that's used to do a full circle. So by using the nautical mile system, we have a one-to-one match with geometry. And we'll see that if we do that, we have this new perspective, this new reality in front of us that we had never seen before. Same thing with time. We use we have 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours a day, right? 365 days a week, a year. But if we use a unit of time that's more compatible with geometry, again, we see a different reality. In this case, we use a unit of time that's based on the number 27, roughly speaking. Instead of 24, right? We have 24 hours in a day, but if we'll use 27 hours in a day, and we see that the nature is configured this way because the sun rotation and the sun revolution cycles are based on 27 days. The moon, right? It's all based on around 27 days a month. If we look at the ancient Vedics, right, there were 27 lunar mansions, the ancient Vedics astrology. If we look at many things in really in our universe, time seems to be synchronized with that number 27. So I found the conversion factor to convert from our standard time, which is 24 hours a day, to 27 hours a day. And we have essentially this conversion factor that allows us to create these new units of time, if you will.
Okay.
Now, one of the first pioneer in the field, I need to give credit to Bruce Cathy, who discovered that, right? Discovered that having this system of distance and time matching geometry was opening the door. So Bruce Cathy was a pioneer. He's deceased many years ago, but he was really one of the leading pioneer in the field. I have expanded this work tremendously. Bruce Cathy was more focused on harmonic 144 only. So I expanded clearly. There's harmonic 432 golden ratio that comes into the equation. So I've expanded this field, if you will, and also made use units or conversion factors that are more accurate. And for the time, I'm not using the number 27 anymore. I'm using the double square root of the golden ratio, will give us even more accuracy to this. So we'll see that. But essentially, when we use the proper unit of time and dimension, again, we have access to this new physics. And I'm going to show it here briefly in a slide. So what I ended up doing actually is what we see here is to the left side is all the main, most important constant in our physics that you will find in physics books, like the Planck constant, the gravitational constant, the Earth gravity acceleration, the speed of light, the Planck length, the Planck mass, and so on. So, right, so all these physics constants that are in white here, they have the units, the value and the units in white. I converted them in blue in these what I call geometric harmonic units, which is based on this new system, simply converting this standard units from regular science, typically, which is in the metric system, right, in regular seconds. I converted all these into nautical miles in geometric seconds, as simple as that. So I recreated these new units in blue. And from that, I can use the regular formula that we see in physics, like the E equal mc squared, the formula to calculate black holes, radius or diameters and things like that, but using these geometric harmonic units instead. And what we're seeing, again, is this convergence into these three harmonics. Everything converges to that. So it's really that simple.
Wow.
And we see that this has been, again, encoded in the Great Pyramid of Giza. We see these harmonics all over the place. I explained that in some of our previous interviews. Same thing with the Royal Egyptian Cubit, which was supposedly the measurement system in ancient Egypt, which is in fact actually a quantum measurement system. We realized that it's based on the Planck length, which is the smallest oscillation of energy in the quantum space and golden ratio. So it's all based on geometry and quantum physics. But we were taught differently, obviously. But when we use these units and this new science, this new way of seeing physics, we realized that this was not a random thing. It was really based on quantum physics, so it's really powerful. My own sightings, I've had many sightings and documented sightings that I recorded with video and screenshots of craft appearing in front of my antenna array. And what we see again is that the angles and the proportions of these crafts are based on these harmonics, which also raise the question is that were these craft actually using these harmonics as the technology allowing them to manifest in our material world? Totally possible, and it totally matches what I believe it is happening. My radio station, I mean, since 2017, again, I've been broadcasting on these harmonics. Initially, I didn't know about it, and kind of realized after the fact. It had many synchronicities, either driving home, the exits to get to my place is based on, there's exit 144, we get the mileage 144, it was all over the place. That track took me into it. And we see here again this, what I call the light encoded reality matrix, the universal formula that drives the universe is represented here. It is the keys to the universe. And even the golden ratio itself is based on this harmonic. So this is, we've seen this in prior episodes. And I have a ton of material on that. And so we'll talk about what's encoded in Rendlesham today. And also here, why is it important? And then obviously, if we have the intricate knowledge on how the universe works, how truly the universe works, and we can use the power of this new physics, if you will, to develop healing technology, develop communication methods, to communicate with non-human intelligence. This opens the door to telepathy, anti-gravity, space travel, free energy, and so on. So it's really why is it important? It really, to me, it represents the key to our own freedom and not be dependent on energy and things like that. So this really opens the door to a lot of things. And I believe clearly the non-human intelligence have been encoding and putting this information right in front of us for a long time in ancient sacred sites and through their manifestations, through the Skinwalker Ranch and all these other things, right? And it's for us to recognize the information, decode it, and turn it into technology that we can utilize. So I think you're muted, Grant.
How many constants are there? Because that's always the big problem of the fine tuning in terms of, trying to explain how this all happened by accident. Is there, you've got what, you got the main ones, about 15, but are there more that are?
Yeah, I mean, all constants really, typically all the physics constants are based on unit of distance and time or combination of both, right? So a distance is a distance, obviously. A speed is a unit of distance divided by a unit of time. We say we go to 20 miles an hour, right? It's a distance divided by, by a unit of time. If we look at an acceleration, it's a distance divided by time squared, right? But it's always involving time and distance. Really, these are the units. So once we have this conversion factor of using the proper unit for the distance, which is the nautical miles and the geometric second that I call for the unit of time, we can recalculate, reprocess all the physics constants that exist in our physics books, pretty much. So,
and if you don't have the constants right, then the universe doesn't form, correct?
Right. I mean, we need to have the right constants to explain how the universe works. Now, interestingly, our mainstream science is very there are still so many mysteries that they're unable to explain, like the nature of the Planck scale, the nature of the mass of material, right? Why are the subatomic particles the mass that they are? They don't know that. Why is the fine structure constants is the value that it is? And I'm going to show, I have a screenshot of it, I'll show in a minute. They don't know, right? These are big secrets. Okay, and why is the universe set up this way, right? Why is it expanding? What is that dark energy they had to make up and create in dark matter? And it's just, our mainstream science is very, very in the dark, if you will. They cannot explain much of the universe. I mean, over 90, 95, 98% of the universe is unknown, right? Or science doesn't work. So, but we'll see that when we use this geometric harmonic language, this universal language that non-human intelligences are using, we can explain everything. And it's very simple. And that's the thing. It's very simple because it makes sense, right? We have to realize that creation has to operate in the way that's the most elegant and simple. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And that's what we're going to see with the code. So what we're seeing here, I mean, again, most people probably know by now about the Rendlesham incident, which is probably one of the two most important UFO incident in our history, next to Roswell. So this craft a couple of times landed in the Rendlesham Forest in 1980. There were witnesses, obviously, that there was a military base right next to it. And we'll see that's quite stunning because this was not an accident. That military base at the time was believed to have been the depot of harboring the largest nuclear weapon arsenal in the world because it was during the Cold War. So, you know, it was strategically located there. So there are rumors about it. So, you know, Jim Penniston was one of the gentlemen, and others were dispatched to investigate. Certainly Jim Penniston, you know, came in contact with the craft, touched the craft, had a download of binary code, and recorded this binary code, which was then translated or decoded only like 30 years later. And what came out of this code is what we see on that slide here. So in white here to the left side is what this binary code was saying. A lot of coordinates. And so for the most part, what we're seeing is a set of 7 sets of coordinates, latitude and longitude. We have one that's connected, that's related to the Kana pyramid in Belize, and I have a little slide here of the world map that shows where these 7 coordinates relates to. We have one which is match Sedona, not too far from where I live. I'm just about an hour and 15 minutes drive from Sedona here. Okay. Giza, obviously the Giza complex in Egypt. Nazca lines in Peru. We had the Mount Titian in China, and the Apollo Temple in Greece. And it says eyes of your eyes. The origin of that message was in High Brazil, which is believed to have been in a civilization that went underwater a long time ago. And the origin year of 8100, essentially suggesting that the intelligence that was communicating this message was coming from the year 8100, which is, you know, just stunning in itself. Yeah. So what I ended up doing, Grant, naturally or instinctively, using again the right units of geometry we talked about, using the nautical mile system because it matches geometry. I calculated the various distances between where the ship landed in Rendlesham Forest and the 7 set of coordinates. And what we see here, and I have a slide to show it here, all the distances expressed in nautical miles between this craft and these 7 coordinates. So these figures we see in yellow all around it, but I have at the bottom right here the more accurate numbers, if you will, of many digits of accuracy.
Wow.
So we'll start, and trust me, you will be surprised by what you're going to hear, what you're going to see. Okay. We're just going to scratch the surface today. We're going to touch maybe 2 items out of 9, and it's going to fill probably most of the program. So, and really what I discovered, Grant, is that all the physics and the material I've been working on, I have 2,000 slides of material. The Rendlesham code is just directly connected to that. It's just the same language again, right? And so clearly they're trying to tell us something that's connected to that. So first of all, before even going into the coordinates, let's look at is there something significant about Rendlesham itself and the Bentwaters Air Force Base, right? Which was just right next to Rendlesham, right? And also the UFO, when the UFO landed, which is right very close to it. So if we look at on the world map, the coordinates of the Rendlesham city, if you will, and the Bentwaters Air Force Base, the longitude is 1.43532.047. I mean, it's very accurate here. Okay, this is the longitude of that location. And so if we see here, I have it represented here. So Rendlesham, we see Rendlesham is here. I use the Google Earth zoom, essentially. Anyone can go, and if you punch in these coordinates here, I have it in red here, 52.130324 north latitude, longitude 1.43532.047. You will get to that site on Google Earth. We see Rendlesham, and we see the Bentwaters Air Force Base, which is right there, right at that coordinate. Yeah. Now, unbelievably, if you look at this number and focus at this number, we realize that this numbers happens to match exactly the diameter of a circle that has an area equivalent to the golden ratio. It's geometry. So essentially, if you take a circle and you assign and I have at the bottom right here, this is a calculator I use online. Anyone can go online and use a circle calculator, right? If you punch in and you set the area of that circle equivalent to the golden ratio, which is 1.618, you will get the diameter of a circle equivalent to 1.43532.047, which happens to match exactly to the dot the longitude of the Bentwaters Air Force Base in Rendlesham.
Wow. That's
Now,
incredible.
it's incredible. And more than that, that value happens to match the speed of light expressed in geometric harmonic terms. You know, these units I talked about earlier, the nautical miles and geometric seconds. If you look on top right here, this is the speed of light expressed in the regular metric system and in the mile system. If we convert that into nautical miles per geometric second, we get that figure of 143,526.737. Look at the match between these two values here. It matches at 99.9996%. So the longitude of the Bentwaters Air Force Base in Rendlesham matches that very precisely.
Wow, that's amazing.
Now, if we go, well, I put these two slides for you, Grant, because you're the expert. I'm not, you know, let's speculate a bit, the speculation playground. I mean, how did they know to construct the Air Force Base at that exact longitude, right, which corresponds to the geometric speed of light harmonic and the fundamental harmonic of light, 144. You know, again, Bentwaters base is believed to have been the largest nuclear weapon depot in the world during the Cold War. It's very interesting, right? And we could speculate maybe the, you know, powers that be chose this location strategically for technological reasons, and I believe that's probably one of the reasons. Maybe they wanted to send a message to the non-human intelligence that they knew about this science, these harmonics, and the way universe works, and they build their largest nuclear depot in the world on that location to send a message, knowing that they will be seen by non-human intelligence. Or maybe the intelligence that encoded this code in the craft, supposedly 8,100 years in the future, made sure that this was, you know, modulated in a way that we will see this outcome today, right? So maybe they have arranged essentially the decision maker to construct the base at that location because we needed to recognize that information at this point in time. So again, speculating, having fun, you know, the mind game here, but clearly the statistical probability that we have a match that's so precise, you know, it's one chance in a few billions that we have this kind of match, right?
Yeah, almost like you accidentally buying a place off of exit 144.
Yeah. All right. That's right. That's right. That's a good one. So now, interestingly, if we look now, okay, we talked about the Bentwaters Air Force Base, which is on the upper left side here of the screen. Now, the craft itself, the Rendlesham Forest, is a bit lower to the southeast, which is here. Now, interestingly, the distance between the Bentwaters Air Force Base or Rendlesham City and the Rendlesham Forest, where the craft landed, is exactly 2.61 nautical miles, which happens to be the golden ratio squared.
Wow.
Right? So it's all in the steps of these harmonics. And finally, if we look at the Rendlesham Forest itself, the coordinates, the longitude of the craft of that coordinates is 1.448718. Again, we get this harmonic 144 again, you see?
Yeah. Wow.
All right, now let's look at the latitude. So let's look at the latitude that was given in the code now, right? So we know the code itself, we see the message again, right? Had these 7 coordinates. Again, we'll just scratch the surface today, but it goes really deep. So we'll look at the latitude here, the 27.977836 north. The longitude was 31.13649, which matches this coordinate falls right in the middle of the Giza complex, really, of the pyramid complex in Egypt. So we see it represented on a map. Again, we're going to look at the latitude here very specifically. And we're going to be talking about a fine structure constant, right? This coordinates gives us the mechanism of the fine structure constant. And I took a screenshot here of the fine structure constant. It says, if you look in the literature, the fine structure constant denoted as alpha is a dimensionless fundamental constant that characterizes the strength of the electromagnetic interactions between elementary charged particles, such as electrons and photons. It's about 1/137 in terms of its value. And it appears in quantum electrodynamics, influencing atomic structure, electron transition, spectral lines. I highlighted in red here that despite its central role in physics, its origin remains completely a mystery in our science today. There's no theoretical framework that predicts its precise value, making it an empirical constant. So we don't know where it's coming from, why it's the value it is, but we need that value, that constant, to make the entire universe work. If we don't have that constant, the universe doesn't work as we understand it, right? All the light interactions, the electrons, transitions, the photons, the light that we see, we live in universe of light, will not work without that constant. So what I discovered last year is that this coordinates essentially given by the craft is giving us an entire mechanism, a mechanism of creation. I'm going to explain it in a second here. And again, it's all about geometry. And I need to repeat that again, that the overall arching principle is that the unity, the source creation itself, which mathematically is represented by the number 1, that number 1 divides itself, right? Divides itself into these harmonics. More specifically, in terms of geometry, this number 1 will divide itself through the golden ratio, which is the most elegant, efficient, basic principle of division, of fractality in the universe, right? So the 1 divides itself through the golden ratio. And that energy will be funneled through the simplest 3-dimensional structure in the universe, which is the tetrahedron. So the tetrahedron we see on that, to the left side here, we need to understand the tetrahedron is the simplest 3-dimensional structure that exists in the universe. And so that's why creation funneled its energy through the tetrahedron. Again, always going through simplicity and elegance. And when we do the math on this, what the implication of that volume energy going into a tetrahedron, that's where we realize that all the constants in our physics are based on these basic mechanisms, this principle. It's very simple. And in this case here, more specifically, we see also that the square, we see a cube, right? This cube has a coordinate of ±1. If you look here, it says Euclidean cube ±1 of coordinate. Again, it's all about the unity source creation dividing itself, right, into the many. And so we always do the mathematics based on division of the 1. So in this case, we have this tetrahedron, which is inscribed within this cube of coordinate ±1. And if we take the side length of this tetrahedron here, the side length of this tetrahedron, unbelievably, this side length happens to match the Royal Egyptian cubit, which is the fundamental unit of measurement that was used in ancient Egypt, but is based on quantum physics, as I said. It's just not an accident, right? So that length, that A length here, when you do the mathematics on it, it gives 0.523824 meter, right? This is what I transcribed here. This is the length, the harmonic length of that side length A of that tetrahedron. And now the next step in this mechanism that the Rendlesham UFO is revealing to us is that once we have a side length that could be, let's say, represented as being a diameter of a circle, we need to turn this side length, this linear distance, into a circle circumference. And the reason why we do that is because a circle circumference, if you look to the right side, happens to be equivalent to a waveform. You see, if you take a circumference of a circle, you cut it in half, and you flip it over, you get a full wavelength, right? And we know that our universe is based on frequency, right? It's based, everything we see around us, the colors we see, the energy, everything has to express itself in the form of energy, in the form of wave frequency. And that's why in that mechanism of creation, logically, we had to convert this linear length into a wavelength, into a frequency, okay? And finally, the next step to this mechanism that the Rendlesham UFO is teaching us, obviously, we're looking at a full wavelength for a circle circumference of 360 degrees. And now here's the punch, Grant. This value in red here this is the coordinate given by the craft, right? The craft gave this value, this latitude value of 29.977836. And that is the missing pieces of the puzzle for this mechanism to work and deliver the fine structure constant that we see in blue here. And in blue, what we have is the fine structure constant, 137.03567 at 99.9998% of accuracy.
Oh, wow. Incredible.
So what we see here, this coordinates again given by the craft, this 29.977836 happens the missing key. That's why I put a little key here, right? Yeah. This is the missing pieces of the puzzle in that mechanism to understand the mechanism of the fine structure constant and give it mathematically. And just to make sure that I'm going to demonstrate that I'm not just BSing anything here, we're going to calculate it together. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we take a 0.523, 824, 7034. I took a lot of digits here for accuracy. We multiply by pi to turn that into a wavelength or a frequency. Okay. And then we multiply by this coordinate given by the craft, 29.977836 over a 360-degree circle, obviously. And we get, and then let me scale it up to, so we get 137.03567. This is the rounded number that I'm showing here. Whoops, here, you see. Again, 99.9998% of accuracy. And I inquire using AI on ChatGPT. I said, what is the statistical probability that we get that number with that level of accuracy? And it's really literally a chance out of 3.16 million. Wow. So to me, I'm using the statistical approach to validate the code, right? And my good friend Gary Osborne always says it, right? He says the code validates itself. And it's true because it's so accurate that the statistical odds that this is just chance or, you know, an accident is just 1 in millions. It just makes it almost impossible.
Can I ask you a question in terms of when you make these discoveries? Mm-hmm. How long does it take you to calm down when you get a new one?
I get very excited, I have to say. And I have an anecdote about this discovery, actually. When this download came to me about this mechanism, I was 2 hours away from talking with Gary Osborne and professor as well. I have a great group on, you know, that we meet once in a while on Zoom. And I was going to have a session with Gary and others. And this download came to me, and I was on my terrace with a coffee, and with my iPhone, I had a calculator machine, and it worked out. It worked out this way. So that's how it came. So yeah, it's very exciting. You know, to me, clearly the intelligence not only is giving a coordinate, because they are giving us homework, right? They are not giving us the answer.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I mean, that coordinate is one little thing, right? This red thing. I had to figure out the entire mechanism to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so they are giving us, as you said, often a little piece of crumbs, right? Breadcrumbs, but we have to do the homework, right?
Yeah,
and so,
exactly.
So what it leads me, and again, wow, this mechanism was based on the coordinates from Rendlesham. Now, very quickly, I understood that we could use this logic to understand the current fine structure constant based on our current physics. And that's what I did, and that's what the slide shows. I'm not going to go through it too much in detail here, but again, using the same logic here, using the tetrahedron side length here, which is 2 Planck length. Right? And what we see here on the left side, I need to describe that this 1 over golden ratio here, this 1 over this sign, again, is the representation of the division of a source creation, the singularity of the Big Bang, if you will, dividing itself through the golden ratio, which is the most efficient, elegant principle of division that exists in the universe. And when we funnel that energy through the tetrahedron, which is the simplest three-dimensional structure in the universe, and we do the mathematics on it, we get a tetrahedron that has a side length equivalent to 2 Planck length, which is based on quantum physics, right? And we get a black hole diameter in the middle that has a diameter equivalent to harmonic 144. That number comes back again, this harmonic 144, which is the speed of light harmonic in geometric harmonic terms, right? And so again, I turned this dimension into a circle, as I said, to match this circle and create a wavelength, right? And that's why I multiply by pi. And so essentially the proportion of the speed of light harmonic, 144 over 360 degrees, matches the wavelength for that circle circumference times that factor, the fine-structure constant. And that's where that fine-structure constant is coming into play in our physics, is that we need to have this factor to align these things to work together. And that's what this equation is here. And using this mechanism, essentially, I was able to resolve the fine-structure constant at 99.97% of accuracy using our quantum physics, using our geometric harmonic unit. So this is what I believe is really the true solution to the fine-structure constant, because it matches quantum physics. It makes sense. And, this is what came out of this work, really.
Wow. You're the guy that may unify it all.
All right, so let's look at the longitude of the Giza complex now. Again, this is given by the code. We're just scratching the surface here. So now we looked at the latitude, and now we're going to be looking at the longitude given by the code, right? Which is, again, the longitude of the Giza complex in this case. We see it here.
Yep.
Okay. Now, something really interesting is that we're talking about a longitudinal distance, a longitude. And for those who follow this, the science of the scalar waves, it is very well known that scalar waves are defined as being longitudinal waves. So it's almost like there's something encoded here, because they are not only encoding the longitude of the Great Pyramid or the Giza complex, but there's a meaning to it that there's also a match with the scalar wave, which per Nikola Tesla himself and Tom Burden, who is very well known in the field, and others have referenced that the scalar EM wave as longitudinal Ageni wave capable of speed faster than speed of light, bringing free energy or communication with consciousness.
Oh.
So this is very significant here. So this scalar wave or longitudinal waves have something to do with direct connection to our consciousness, free energy, and speed that goes beyond the speed of light. So I don't think it's an accident that the Giza complex is encoded with that longitude. Now, so naturally, again, using this basic geometric harmonic science, we talked about these new units, I converted this longitude of the Giza complex given by the Rendlesham UFO into a distance. So we just multiply by, this, it's 31.13, 1649 degrees. There are 60 nautical miles per degree. So we end up with a physical distance on planet Earth of 1867.9 nautical miles. This is the linear distance matching that angle or that coordinate. We have a different representation here. Again, the distance between the prime meridian. We got the equator at the bottom here. You see, we got a prime meridian going through Africa and Europe. And the pyramid of Giza given by the Rendlesham code is here. So the distance at the equator is 1867.9, as I said. And I'm even showing here the proof that I use the sophisticated software to calculate using the actual coordinates. The distance is exactly matching that, right? 1867.9 if we round it.
Yeah.
Now, unbelievably, and this this is so amazing, if we take that distance, 1867.9, and we feed that distance into the Schwarzschild metric, and I'll explain you what the Schwarzschild metric here is to the left here, at the bottom left. The Schwarzschild metric is the formula, or one of the formula used in astrophysics. The astrophysicists use this formula to calculate the diameter of black holes or radius of black holes, cosmological black holes. It's a very simple formula, and I kind of rearranged it to work with energy, but essentially the diameter of a black hole with the D here, we see represent the diameter of a black hole, is 4 times G. G is the gravitational constant. The E is the energy of that black hole. Could be mass, right? Because some black hole can be represented as mass. We can represent it as energy as well. And we ratio that over C4, C being the speed of light harmonic, 144 to the power of 4, right? So that's the formula. So if we take that distance between the prime meridian and the coordinate given by the craft, the Rendlesham craft of 1867.9, and we feed that as the energy into this equation, the little e here, we get a diameter of a black hole that matches 1.43532.047. Okay, and black hole are theorized to be portals.
Yeah.
Right. The singularity giving us access to any point in the universe. Now look at this number, the diameter of 1.43532.07. You remember that number? This is exactly the longitude of the Rendlesham forest, or the Rendlesham, the Bentwaters Air Force Base, 1.43532.047. Which also matches the diameter of a circle that has an area equivalent to the golden ratio, which matches the speed of light harmonic.
Wow.
This is incredible. So now we're looking at, we just took this coordinates, and we get back to the slide here. So we just took this coordinate, converted that into a linear distance, right? And we feed that as energy into the Schwarzschild metric, which is a known formula in physics. And we get the diameter of a black hole matching what, again, the Bentwaters Air Force Base and the Rendlesham longitude and the speed of light harmonic, right? So we've just validated essentially that the equation for the black holes equation totally works with this, right? And so the physics of black holes work with this. It's a big deal, right? Essentially, the coordinate given by the craft has to do with the physics of black holes. There's no doubt about it, because this is so precise and accurate at 99.999% match that this is not an accident. This is not a coincidence. So essentially, this again, this coordinates encodes the physics of black holes and singularity and portals. This leads us to something even deeper, and this leads us to what I call the mechanism of creation. And as we'll see in the next few slides, and that's been part of my latest work and discovery over the last several months, is that the mechanism of universal creation is encoded in the physical location of the Giza complex given by the code, very accurately. And it makes sense, and it works with quantum physics, it works mathematically, it works with geometry. And again, we see it's just all over the place. So if we're going back to this distance here, this longitudinal distance, again, which may have to do with scalar waves, right? So this energy that I represent here, 1867.88, right? And the diameter that we talked about, 143532047, which is again the longitude of the Bentwaters Air Force Base and the Rendlesham, and all that. Now, if we create a reverse engineer it essentially and calculate the volume energy that goes into this tetrahedron and the side length of this tetrahedron, we get to this solution here, what I call the primordial fractalization, which is primordial fractalization is essentially, you can look at it from the Big Bang, or when creation started, when our universe started, right? And it started with the number 1 here, right? The number 1 dividing itself through the golden ratio, being the basic fractal principle of division in all nature, right? Makes sense. So if we do this and we feed that volume energy into the tetrahedron, we get all these figures here. You see these harmonics. Now, what's interesting to this is, again, the side length is 2 times the Planck length. So there's a direct connection to quantum physics, right? We'll start looking at the Planck length. The residual volume inside that tetrahedron, look at it, it's harmonic 432. Now, if we ask ourselves, why are we seeing this harmonic 432 everywhere in nature? I believe it's because it is the natural result of the primordial fractalization of the source creation dividing itself mathematically and geometrically into the tetrahedron, yields naturally harmonic 432. That is why it's all in our universe. It's the natural result of that fractalization, of that division, of the unity of source creation. And what we see, the black hole inside the tetrahedron here with this energy, again, we see the diameter. If we round it, we get the diameter equivalent to harmonic 144, right? If you round this blue number here, it's 144, and that energy matches that distance here where the pyramid is built. So it's all connected. So I ended up, I came up with essentially this whole mechanism of creation, of universal creation. I'm going to explain in a second. It is encoded so accurately, Grant, in the location of the Giza complex given by the code that there's just no statistical chance that it's accident or chance. It's just so accurate. And I'm going to explain it. It's very simple, actually. It looks a bit scary if you look at the picture. We're going to go step by step. It's very simple. Now, if we look at the world map in the middle here, right, we see on the upper right side the Giza complex, right? This is the coordinates that we have. And what we see is A, B, C, D, or the distances from the different distance. If we look at, we have the prime meridian here, the equator. So at the latitude 0, longitude 0, which is here, right? The distance between that point and the Giza complex is 2,528.7624 nautical miles. We got the distance B, 1,867.9. We already talked about this one, right? This is the one that was coming from this one, right? And then we have the distance D and distance A. So I'm going to explain that I'm going to show that all these distances are part of the mechanism of universal creation. There's just no doubt about it. So let me explain. And by the way, I'm doing a little parenthesis here. I've had manifestations that I recorded during transmissions, like this triangular craft, for instance. Okay. And I calculated the angle of this triangular craft. So I kind of flipped it over a little bit here, calculate the angle. So the angle is 103.655 here, which happens to be exactly the supplementary angle of the apex of the Great Pyramid of Giza here. So that triangular craft encodes the angle of the apex of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And these angles in this craft, when we assign, let's say this side here equivalent to harmonic 144, which is the speed of light harmonic. Naturally, the side on the left side here will be equivalent to 186.8, which matches again. You see this energy inside this tetrahedron.
Wow.
And the bottom of that triangle is equivalent to golden ratio squared, which reveals the golden ratio. And I have the mathematics here that shows in the little screenshot here. So essentially, this craft was in itself encoding some of the key aspects of this primordial fractalization mechanism. It's just black and white. It's very accurate. Another thing that's interesting is that, again, if we look at this angle, 103.655 degrees of this triangular craft, happens to match the angle that we find everywhere in nature. Like, look at the fish here. The fish at the nose at 103.655 degrees, which is, again, a supplementary angle of the Great Pyramid of Giza. This giant manta ray, same angle, 103.655 degrees. Many pyramids all over the world, the Palenque Pyramid, the Ben Pyramid, same angle.
Wow.
And I've been working with a wonderful gentleman called Charlie Zees, who's done tremendous work in this field of calculating angles, and his work totally meshes with my own work. And so this is where this is coming from. Now, just to have a little fun here, you know, you may have followed the Skywatcher team, right? They have this different classes of UAP. In the class 5, they call it the manta ray, right? They have this manta ray shape that's appearing to them, and they have a video about it, right? But if we look at the manta ray, the angle of a manta ray is exactly 103.655 degrees, which matches all these pyramids around the world. And that's the information that's being communicated to them. I have no doubt about it. Like, they're playing with these guys and showing them these key figures driving the universe. And I don't think they are connecting the dots because they're too much in the nuts and bolts yet. But
Exactly. Interesting, that, because I've done a lot of study on it. And this is the thing, is they're giving everyone wonders what they're doing. Well, they're coding this, but they're not giving you the whole thing. They're staying at a distance, and you've got to figure this thing out. They're not doing our homework for us.
Exactly. And they had another video here. They call it the rubber duck UAP. They have an interview here. I'm showing the interview, and this this kind of duck. But I instinctively, I said, okay, they're showing a duck. Let's analyze a duck. If we look at the paw of a duck, If you look here, it's exactly 103.655 degrees, which
Wow.
again matches the supplementary angle of the Great Pyramid of Giza. All these angles we find, in the Dozier Pyramid, the Bent Pyramid in Egypt, and so on. This is very, very important angle, which has to do with black holes and singularities, by the way. I do have an entire slide deck about this. I'm not going to go through that today, but it's very, very important mathematical information. All right, so briefly, I'll try to go through this, not too complicated, but just to explain this mechanism of universal creation that they are communicating to us. So again, we take the unity, right? Source creation, divide itself through the golden ratio. That's what we see on the left here, right? This golden ratio, the value of that golden ratio, phi, is 1.618, right? So if we take that A distance, you look on the map now, the distance between the prime meridian and the Great Pyramid of Giza, or the Giza coordinates given by the Rendlesham code, is 1617.32 nautical miles.
Wow.
How close is it from the golden ratio? 1.618. It's identical. I mean, for all practical purpose, it's the same number.
Yeah.
Super accurate. Now, if we, again, take that 1 over golden ratio, we get a number equivalent to 618. Okay. So this is the volume energy going into the tetrahedron, which is the simplest three-dimensional structure that exists in our universe. That's why source creation the creation operates through simplicity and elegance. And again, we're going through the simplest division principle that exists and the simplest three-dimensional structure that exists, which is the tetrahedron. And that's why it is the case here. All right, if we go to the next step here. Now, if we take that volume energy and we fill that tetrahedron with that volume energy, we get these figures. And let me explain you how we can represent it. Imagine that you have a container of 618 gallons of water or gasoline, right? And you pour that gasoline into that tetrahedron, which has an inscribed sphere here, right? The proportion of the gasoline going into that circle inside, we call it inscribed sphere. And outside the sphere will be this. There will be 432 gallons outside and 186.8 gallons of gasoline going inside that sphere. And it's all mathematical because you can go online, find a triangle calculator. The inscribed sphere has a very specific formula for it. So it's all mathematical. We don't need to know the math, but for the people, but it's just very simple, right? So essentially source creation, that energy divide itself and create these harmonics. 432 and the harmonic 1868, rounded. I rounded this number. And again, now, if you look at that number, 1868, this harmonic, distance B, look on the map here, the distance between the prime meridian at the equator and the Giza complex is exactly 1867.9 nautical miles. Round it, you get exactly 1868.
Wow.
That's the harmonic. So all these harmonics of creation that are embedded in this mechanism of creation are encoded in the distances between the prime meridian equator and the Giza complex, very accurately. And interestingly, again, the 432, the residual volume inside the tetrahedron, we know that the harmonic 432 is all over the world. All in nature, we see this harmonic again. And that's why, to me, explains why we see this harmonic 432. It's because it's part of creation. It's really the expression of a source creation expressing itself in nature. All right, so let's go to the next step. And this one is really, really mind-blowing. Let's start with the figure at the center here, right? So this figure is called a 64 tetrahedron grid. This is a figure that Nassim Haramein has done a lot of work on this figure and came up with this essentially mathematics and show that this three-dimensional structure made of 64 tetrahedron, if you cast a light from the top, and the shade, essentially the shadow that will express itself at the bottom will be the flower of life, this two-dimensional flower of life that we all know about. The flower of life is a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional structure. And the three-dimensional structure are 64 tetrahedrons. Okay, so what I ended up doing is using simply, again, using this mechanism of creation with this volume, 618 gallons of gasoline, if you will, of energy, and we take 64 of them, right? Because that's what goes into this structure. And we do that, we get a result matching 1 over 2,528. Okay, this is the figure we're getting. I called it distance C, 2,528. Amazingly, Grant, if you look at the distance between the primary equator and the Great Pyramid or Giza complex, it's 2,528.7624. Exactly.
Wow.
It's exact. And I have rounded the figure here. If we go to my actually initial slide where we have the accuracy, if you look at the bottom left here, the accuracy, that the actual number, if we look at all the digits, we get 2,528.66. And the distance is 2,528.667624. So there's a 99.99998% match accuracy.
Oh.
It's insane.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that leaves no doubt. It's not accidents, no coincidence. So this is part of the mechanism of creation. And from the 2D flower of life, you know, the flower of life, as we know, from the flower of life, we can create all the geometric figures that exist, all the geometrical forms that exist in the universe, right? This gives to four. Yeah. Essentially, this mechanism of creation yields all the forms and geometry and the three-dimensional structure that exists in our physical reality.
Wow.
And finally, well, again, if we take that volume energy in that inscribed sphere inside the tetrahedron, this 186.8 gallons of gasoline, if you will, or water or energy, and we feed that energy into the Schwarzschild metric, we get a diameter of a black hole matching exactly 144, if we round the figure. This is why this fundamental harmonic of light, 144, that we see everywhere in the literature, encoded in the Giza pyramid and Giza complex, ancient sacred sites. It's even like they always talk about this 144 chosen people, whatever, right? There's all kind of mythology about this. It's mathematics. I mean, it's just exact. It's finally, the last distance that I figured out more recently, called distance D here. Again, if we go back to that circle, right, that was matching the longitude of the Bentwaters Air Force Base or the Rendlesham City.
Okay.
Matching the speed of light, 1435347, right? And we ratio that distance over that harmonic, we get 4 pi, 12.53 matches 4 pi. And 4 pi in our physics is a very, very important figure. We see it involved in many physics constants. And if we take 4 pi as being the surface area of a sphere, the sphere we assign 4 pi and we inscribe that sphere within a dodecahedron, we get a volume of a dodecahedron matching the volume of our universe.
Wow.
And we know that Plato always told us that the universe was a dodecahedron. And it's exactly what that mathematics is telling us here. And that distance D on the map,
wow,
going from the equator, the longitudinal distance from the equator to the Giza complex given by the Rendlesham codes, gives us the creation of the universe accurately at 99% accuracy.
Unbelievable.
So what we end up with here is that the physical location of the Giza complex given by the Rendlesham code and the Giza complex itself gave us the 64 tetrahedron grid, the three-dimensional structure that yields the 2D flower of life, which gives form to all the forms and geometry that exist in our physical reality. We have the creation of the universe. Even the Planck length actually is connected to this. I didn't show the math here, but the Planck length is connected to the mathematics as well, which is the smallest oscillation of energy that can happen in the quantum space. And we see here this tetrahedron, which contains the energy producing a black hole matching harmonic 144, the speed of light harmonic. The golden ratio is encoded here, distance A. So everything is encoded about our creation in the physical location of the Great Pyramid or the Giza complex encodes the mechanism of creation.
Incredible. How many people are working with you on this?
Well, my work, I do my work by myself. I share my work with collaborators, and they all have their kind of old specialized field, if you will, or areas of research, but very limited. I mean, there may be 2-3 people we are aware of this.
Yeah,
this
Gary Osborne and Bob McGuire. Is he still involved?
Well, I'm in touch with Bob McGuire. I'm not actively working with him on projects. He's I know he follows my work, so So we're in touch. I'm not actively working with him. So yeah, so it's still, again, all this information. That's what I want to put in a book and share this information. I have presented this information in some interviews, but again, interviews, people watch and forget about it, right? So
Yeah.
but it's mathematical already. It works now. Amazingly, what we showed here, like this quadrant or the square
Yeah.
of between the prime meridian, the equator, and the Giza complex that I show here. Look at this, and this is mind-blowing, Grant. If we calculate the surface area of that
Yeah.
land mass on planet Earth,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
get to a surface area equivalent to 3.14 million nautical miles squared, square nautical miles in terms of area. And 3.14 is equivalent to the constant pi. Pi
Yeah.
is 3.1416.
Yeah.
So whatever intelligence has crafted this thing, put right in front of us at the planetary scale a big sign of pi right in front of us.
Yeah.
And you may recall that pi is the symbol for portals, right? Because if you look at the ancient sacred sites all over the world, Stonehenge, right? We get these rocks with there's one on
Yeah.
top and two like this. These are pi signs, right? They're signs for portals. And so this pi sign is very important. It's encoded everywhere in these ancient sacred sites. Now, more than that, I was curious. So instinctively, I said, okay, this pi square is just unbelievable because the surface area of planet Earth matches pi. Now, let's look at the corner, each corner of this pi square. Now, obviously, on the upper right side, we get the Giza complex, right? So we get a pyramid. But then I use Google Earth and punched in the coordinates at the bottom right, for instance, bottom right of that coordinate, and I zoomed in, and I happened to fall in the southwest of Uganda in Africa, and we see something really peculiar sticking out of the back of the
Wow.
ground here. Something is sticking out clearly, like there seems to be a remnants of an ancient sacred sites. And if we look here even further, there's some hieroglyphs sticking out of the terrain here that are very interesting.
Wow.
Looks like almost like an ET here. If you look at a big head, like the hands and the so that side seems to clearly there's something going on here that should be excavated and look further. But it's not the only one. If we look to the bottom left side of that pi square, it falls in the middle of the in the ocean here, in Southwest Africa. Look, we see something sticking out of the ocean also. Let me show you here. Latitude 0, longitude 0. There's something sticking out of the ocean. Clearly, it's not normal, right? So this should be excavated, should be, we cannot excavate an ocean, but should be clearly investigated.
Interesting.
And finally, if you look on the upper left side of that pi square, we get another side which falls in the middle of the desert of Algeria in Africa. And again, we see here something sticking out of the desert, buried in the sand. So I don't think it's an accident. I think clearly, as part of this mathematics that we need to remember, there are ancient sacred sites that have been built at these specific locations because we see it physically. I mean, anyone can go on Google Earth and punch in the coordinates. You will find, you can see it for yourself. There's something going on here.
And as you pointed out in previous ones, they're all connected. When you start looking the distance between the sacred sites, they all connect as well. They're not randomly dropped all over the place.
Oh, exactly. Because as we saw, these distances, the pi square matches the primordial fractalization mechanism, right? We talked about. So that all these, you see, this is the pi square we looked at here. You see on a world map, and so these 4 black dots represents these squares that have these. We speculate here, but seems to have these ancient sacred sites all over the place. So somebody should go look at these sites, and I will bet my next 10 salaries that there's something here.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against you, that's for sure. Wow.
All right. Okay, and finally, and this is some of the last slides. um, this code, this tetrahedron, not only encode the mechanism of creation, but clearly seems to give us the answer, Grant, to one of the greatest mystery in the universe, which is the nature and the origin of dark matter, dark energy, and visible matter.
Okay.
Okay, if anyone can go on the internet and look for that, right? And they're gonna tell you that the visible matter that we can actually see, the planets, the material world, represents only 4.868% of the universe, right? And obviously matter creates gravity, right? So we know there's gravity, but because the mainstream science was unable to explain the gravity that we're actually measuring in our universe, in our galaxy, for instance, right? Because we know that our star just evolved, right, around the center of our galaxy, the Milky Way, right?
Yeah.
And so if there's not enough gravity to hold our stars or our planets, our stars will escape, will just literally escape with the velocity, and the movement will just escape and go get lost in the space, right? So they know there's more gravity here to glue all these stars together. And so they had to create or make up what they call dark matter, right? This is what's in blue here. And that dark matter have to represent mathematically 25.92% of our universe, of our gravity, to explain the universe we live in. They have to create it because they don't know where it's coming from. They cannot see it. They just see the gravitational impact of it, or gravitational effect of this dark matter, but we cannot see it, right? So they had to mathematically made it up, if you will.
Yeah.
And finally, to explain the so-called expansion of our universe, there has to have an energy that pulls everything, right? That separates everything, that pulls everything apart, if you will. That goes against gravity, right? Gravity puts everything together, but the energy that propels, if you will, the expansion for universe has to pull everything the other way around. It goes to an opposite force to gravity, if you will. And that dark energy amazingly represents 69.17% of our universe, which is huge. Again, we cannot see it. We just see the effect of it. They don't know what it is. They have no explanation for it. So in 2009, the Planck Institute launched a satellite called the Planck satellite. We see the little satellite here. It was equipped with special equipment to measure the cosmic background radiation in space, right? To try essentially to map out the proportion of dark matter, dark energy, and visible matter, and all this stuff, right? So this satellite from the Planck Institute was launched specifically to study that, to study the makeup of our universe. So this is where these figures are coming from. This is really mainstream science. You can find it everywhere in mainstream science. Now, what I discovered is that if you take the tetrahedron to the right side here that we talked about from the primordial fractalization, now look at the volume, outside volume here of that tetrahedron, which is 69.77%, happens to match the dark energy at 69.17%. It matches. And if we combine the dark matter and the visible matter together, we get a total of 30.79% of matter, happens to match the in-sphere of that inscribed sphere into the tetrahedron, which is 30.23 at 98.2% match. So there's a very amazing match between what we see in the universe and what we see in a tetrahedron. So I ended up doing the math on this and calculated the mass density that was delivered by the Planck satellite. So what we see here, the figures for dark energy, dark matter, and visible matter. So what we see, these figures here, or what the Planck satellite has calculated, if you will, right, out of all this instrumentation. This is what they came up with. So for instance, they say the dark energy has a mass density of 5.874 to the power of -27 kilogram per cubic meter, and so on. So this is the figure they came up with. Now, when I calculate the same energy density or mass density using the primordial fractalization mechanism that we talked about, which is encoded in the Giza complex, encoded in the Rendlesham code, and we do the math on it, we get these figures here. Okay, so compare, for instance, for dark energy, 5.874, and we get 5.818, we have a match of 99%. Same for dark matter. We get dark matter a match of 99%, and for the visible matter, we get 99% match. So the primordial fractalization mechanism that we just went through, which is communicated by non-human intelligence and encoded in ancient sacred sites, happens to match and explain the makeup of our universe very accurately.
Wow. You're absolutely amazing, Jimmy. Absolutely amazing what you've come up with.
And in fact, it's the funny thing, it's simple because we just followed what source creation does. And what source creation does, again, if you recall, right, it's the source divide itself with the golden ratio, which is the simplest, most efficient principle of division that exists, right? And that energy is funneled through the simplest three-dimensional structure in the universe, which is the tetrahedron. And that gives us all these constants and these values that explains our universe. So again, it's not complicated. In fact, it's very simple.
Yeah.
So a couple of slides and then we'll be done. So now what we did, so again, we just scratched the surface, right? So if you look at the coordinates that we did here, we did, let me go back to it. So we did the location of the Bentwaters Air Force Base in Rendlesham, the craft, and then we explored the coordinates of the Giza complex, which gives us the fine structural constant, the primordial fractalization mechanism, the makeup of our universe, and so on. So we just have time maybe for one more, just going to do one more coordinates. It's going to be quick. This one is straightforward. And it is the distance between the UFO, the Rendlesham UFO landing site and the Nazca plane in Peru, which is one of the coordinates.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to play a video here that I just to break the routine a bit here. So I asked ChatGPT AI, artificial intelligence, to calculate the volume of our universe expressed in cubic nautical miles, right? Again, we're using the nautical mile system again because that matches geometry, right? So I said, okay, ChatGPT, tell us what the best estimated volume of our universe is per the mainstream science. And I will show the video with it and show you. It's going to take 3 seconds. Show you that I'm not making this up. Okay. So give me 1 second. ChatGPT, here we go. And you will see me writing here. What is the best estimated volume of our universe expressed in cubic nautical miles?
Okay.
And I ask it to give us more accuracy, more significant digits. Okay. So we see here the results. 5,614, right? This is the volume, this harmonic, right? 5614. This is given by ChatGPT. I'm not making this up, right? So let's go back to our slide here. What is the distance between the Rendlesham Forest UFO and the Nazca plane? 5,616. Matches exactly the volume of our universe.
Holy shit. Yeah, that's just mind-boggling. It's simple, but you takes a lot of piecing it together. How long have you been doing this? These calculations and stuff you had from the sighting with the triangle when you had your antenna, you picked it up. How many years you've been doing this?
Well, the mathematical stuff really started in 2021, so it's been for 3.5 years only.
Amazing.
But I have to say, like all this material about Rendlesham, I made the discoveries many months ago, actually, many months ago, years ago. I have never got the chance to present it anywhere. So since you had the special on Rendlesham, I said, okay, I'm going to dig my old slides. And, I had made this calculation quite some time ago. So I'm just sharing this information now, but it's yeah, it's been a while. There's some new stuff that came up with, I have to say, like the fine structure constant I discovered last summer
Yeah.
last year, and the makeup of the universe also last year. So some of the stuff is fairly recent. But as you can see here again, that coordinate is straightforward. And if we look
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the
That's
accuracy, I mean, let's play with the accuracy. Let's see here. We say 5,614. We divide that by 5,616. We get an accuracy at 99.96%. You see, so
yeah.
and again, it's one thing. So they are more coordinates, as you know, right? So there are all
Yeah.
these. So what we did today is just what's highlighted in red. We did the Giza complex and the Nazca plane, all this other stuff we've not touched. And I'm telling you, all the other coordinates contains this physics, this information about the size of our universe, the mechanism of creation, the speed of light, the quantum space. It's all encoded in these coordinates. We just didn't cover everything today, but I have all the stuff, all the slides. My slide deck is nearly 2,000 slides now of
Yeah.
material.
Can we do another one next week, same time?
We can. I'm going to be traveling for work next week, but maybe we
Okay.
can. Yeah, we can set a time. Let's touch base maybe by email.
Yeah.
We can set a time.
And
Uh,
I'd like to see the rest because I mean, it's just it sort of gives you a good feeling that everything makes sense and it's somebody's got it under control here, and Jimmy's figured it out.
yeah, it's actually interestingly, it's quite simple actually when we understand the language. It's the same language, and I found this language in all these ancient structures, ancient sacred sites. When I look at them, they're either their dimension or location on the planet Earth. Same stuff. It's the same stuff coming over and over again.
Yeah,
So
down to the quantum level. You had down to the atom, the distances, and all that kind of stuff. But at all levels, it all fits together. It's all the same sort of geometric, calculations.
yeah, exactly. It's really, I mean, our reality is based on geometry, right? So we're just using the mathematics of geometry and these harmonics, and just everything works out. So clearly, they have been communicating to us this information for quite a long time, for
Yeah,
thousands of
yeah,
years, right? And that's coming together now. So I'm confident that at the right time, the right people will look at it,
yeah,
will pick on it. I trust the
yeah.
universe.
Everybody's waiting for the landing on the White House lawn and the lecture, but the lecture is embedded. You got to figure it out. There's no free lunch here.
That's right. And I think from their perspective, they're probably saying, okay, look, we're showing you this, right?
Yeah,
We're giving
yeah,
you the answers.
yeah,
Of course, we have to figure it out. But if we figure it out, it gives us free energy,
yeah.
space travel, anti-gravity, and all this stuff to free ourselves as a civilization. And so they give us the keys to our own freedom. We just need to figure it out and remember the information.
Well, I'm honored to have been by your side for a couple of years here, as because I think you're way ahead of everybody, and it's an honor to know you and to have a chance to get you to put this out. And I'll do whatever I can to move it along. And when somebody else needs to see it, they'll see it, and we can take that step that we need to take. That we're sort of almost like Wilbur Smith used to describe that the world, the way that science was working is you couldn't figure out something, you'd put a Band-Aid on the egg and then another crack and put another Band-Aid and put another Band-Aid. And he said it was just something full of Band-Aids. And it's very simple when you sort of get it. And you just go, wow, when you see how intricate and how exact it is as compared to the view that it's all random and it's just accidental and everything's just happening by accident and stuff like that. And you see, no, there's this very intricate pattern, which is very simple, but it's there, and they've basically spelled it out for us in things that have been around for 10,000 years, and just they don't really care when you figure it out, but it's fascinating. I'm honored to been a part of your journey and your mission. I guess you would consider this to be like your mission. You're like uh, what's his name in Close Encounters with the Potatoes. I'm sort of trying to Richard Dreyfuss. With the making potato mountains and stuff like that. So
Yeah, but it's happened. I mean, yeah, from my perspective, it's very clear that these non-human intelligence have directly communicated
yeah,
pieces of the puzzle to me through their sightings. I mean, that because I decoded them, right? So clearly they want this information to come out,
yeah,
right? And they
yeah,
may have recognized in me an ability to understand it, and so I can communicate it. So whatever the reason is, I feel strongly about it, and there's so many synchronicities in my life
Yeah.
and experiences and stuff that's just I understand that uh, one of my purpose is to get this information out, and it's all free. I'm not charging anything. When my book is done, I'm going to make the information available for free. And it's very important for me this information to get out. And one other thing I didn't mention, I'm also using the power of artificial intelligence also to
Yeah.
feed that information into the matrix, into the system, into the
Yeah. Yeah.
consciousness, right? Because once the information is in there, it's
Yeah.
available, right? And so I have actually uploaded all my information into the matrix,
Good
if you
idea.
will, so it can spread, and go, you know, goes into the mass consciousness slowly and surely. But yeah, so it's very exciting to me, having fun doing this, and it's like the information is like a waterfall. It just doesn't stop. I just,
Yeah.
the limitation is more the time, the personal time I have to put into this. But it's very clear. It's beautiful, and it connects also all our material world and our matrix with consciousness too. That science is the science of consciousness, actually,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of it.
And it's almost like, what was that scientist called, it beautiful science or beautiful mathematics or whatever? When you see it, you just go, wow, and you realize you're on the right track, where it's like elegant math. I can't remember what the expression, but a lot of the quantum physics guys always used to talk about that. That is, the math is going to be very sort of short and very sweet and very elegant. Where
Yeah, I mean, if we look at nature, right, we see that source creation, nature, the universe is so perfect and amazing that it will not make sense if it will be super complex. Yeah, of course, there's some level of complexity, but I mean it's so elegant and simple, and that's how universe operates. The universe is really simple and elegant, and everything percolates from that, emerges from that simplicity and elegance, and that's we see. It's mathematically simple and elegant too. It's actually very simple. And everywhere I look around, whether it's stars or planets, or I do some calculation about anything, it always comes down to the same numbers, which is simple. It's just a matter to apply the correct methodology, right? And that's why once you're tuned into that language, everything kind of falls naturally, simply, and it's very simple and easy. So it's not even complicated. You know, I don't know how this is gonna unfold. I do not have much trust in our current mainstream science to pick on this, because typically researchers, scientists have too much invested in their own work and their own paradigm, which is the
yeah,
mainstream science paradigm, which is not working. And so I'm not confident that they will say one day, well, we may have been wrong all along and we're going to change our paradigm, right? It's not likely to happen. I think it's going to be more grassroots from regular people, young engineers, young people who can understand
yeah,
basic maths and going to pick on it and spread it. And it's just too obvious and it works too perfectly, statistically speaking, that it works, right? So I think it's gonna at some point at the right time. I think it's gonna flourish.
yeah. And that's where you and I think, are both on the same track, is that the UFO community has to get not so much chasing lights in the sky, but there a communication going on, and are people getting messages, and what's the message instead of this? It's almost like well, what Dr. Eric Walker, who I think was the highest source anybody ever had, he just said, just admit it, you're curious. That's the only reason you want to know. That's all it is. And he said, unless you have the mind of Einstein, you're never going to figure this out. And basically it's right that most people in the UFO field are into entertainment. And they're
Yeah.
really, when it comes to the message, they don't want to hear, what people the experiencers are saying, or people are getting material. And the answer, as you're pointing out quite clearly, is right there, right in front of your face. And it's just a matter of changing your focus from one thing to focus on this. As Max Planck said, you don't convince your opponent that you're right by convincing him he's wrong. Science advances when your opponent dies, and the new generation is not offended with the idea. And I think that's it, almost like the intelligence. I mean, if whatever the pyramids is, 10,000 years or whatever, I mean, these answers have been there, and they really don't care when we figure it out. and there's an eternity to figure it out. And we're always like, well, we got to figure this out tomorrow, and we're in this race. And I'm sure that you're going to have more levels and more levels as you go along, and get more and more, and just going to get more and more of the answers were in the geometric calculations as you go along. And there's no doubt you're on the right track in terms of the unbelievable 99.999%, and how the numbers all fit together, and the importance of this code, which nobody really even paid attention to. I mean, they just sort of looked at it, and everybody questioned about High Brazil. Well, where's High Brazil? And there's a mistake in this, and all this kind of stuff. And when you look at it, it's clear. They've given you disclosure, and disclosure involves doing some work, which people really don't want to do. They just want to be entertained. And they're busy, and I can see it. Like my son, or a lot of people, they don't want to put the time in. They just sort of hear what's on TV and stuff like that. But it gives me an assurance that the universe is magnificent and grand, and your work has vindicated this belief that I've always had, that almost like Max, or who is it, David Bohm says, when you get to the quantum level and you figure that all out, there's just another level below that. It's like it's just going to get more and more grand and beautiful,
Yeah.
and yet very simple.
Yeah, totally. And is it not Carl Sagan who said that if there will be in a so-called extraterrestrial communication, that if the fine structure constant will be
Yeah,
embedded
yeah,
or encoded, that will be
yeah,
the ultimate proof of
yeah,
contact, right?
yeah.
We
Exactly.
have
Yeah,
we just
exactly.
proved it today. We just showed it, and not only we get the fine structure constant, well, they are teaching us the mechanism of creation, the mechanism as to why the fine structure constant is
Wow.
the value that it is. So it's even more powerful. So it's
Yeah,
undeniable.
yeah. Powerful. So what are you planning for the next session? You're going to do some of the other
Yeah,
locations and
we
stuff?
look at the other
Okay.
coordinates. It's going to all fall in line, and I do have so much material, Grant. I have that one difficulty for me is to boil it down to something that can be
Yeah,
communicated,
yeah, yeah,
understood, right? Because it can be quite
yeah.
complex. But I have also new material because all this mathematics also is connected also to the mathematics of our planetary history. What I mean by that is, for instance, the ancient pole shift that occurred in the position of the current North Pole versus the old North Pole, and all these prophecies that you mentioned earlier, like next year,
Yeah.
2026, 27, there's stuff that's going to be happening. This mathematic connects to that as well, because I can show, for instance, that the old North Pole was located in the northwest Canada, because all the ancient sacred sites around the world form an equator, and the North Pole of that equator points to that old North Pole,
Okay. Yeah.
northwest Canada. And there's been a pole shift and sometime in our history. The planetary shifted by 23.5 degrees, and
Yeah.
we see the current North Pole. And you know why? It's interesting because that angle, that difference is harmonic 144. So even the
Yeah.
pole shift that happens are based on geometry. It's not random.
Wow.
Geometry will guide how the pole shift takes place and
Oh,
so on. And the ancient sacred sites are pointing the finger to it. They're very specifically showing it to us. And they are trying to help us remember these shifts so we can be prepared for what may be coming next. And so I do have also studied some planetary alignments that are coming up, like in 2033, for instance. There's a very, very rare planetary alignment that's going to be 6 planets in our solar system perfectly aligned with the sun and the moon, and
wow.
also the center of our galaxy, which contains a
Yeah.
massive black hole, right? And this is the great attractor. So there could be a possibility of planetary change or pole shift at that moment because of the alignment of these planets. And it's not random, because I studied also for instance, you may have heard of the Carrington event. When
Yeah.
it's in 1859, 1659, 1859. The A long time ago, even during it was 1859, right? In that time period, there was a massive solar storm that was so powerful that it fried the telegraphic stations and the line. At the time, they were
Oh,
communicating with Morse code,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
1859, whatever. And the solar storm was so powerful that it fried the telegraphic station just by the electromagnetic
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
magnetic field that was induced. and the people on Earth could see the northern lights, you know, the aurora borealis all over the world at low latitude. And they say that if the same, that at the time they didn't have a good way to quantify and measure the strength of the storm, because in 1859 there was nothing, no
Yeah.
technology. But they said if the same solar storm will happen today, for instance, it will fry all the electronics that we know, all the computers, the cars couldn't run anymore, the pump couldn't work, you couldn't get water. It will
Yeah.
end civilization as we know it, right? So the sun can be very hazardous in a sense. But so I went back in time. I used a software online to see if there was something special happening on that date, and I have the slides for it. And amazingly, 2 days prior to that solar storm, there was this alignment of planets in our solar system.
Wow. Wow.
So something, right? The gravity of this alignment probably pulled the
Yeah.
sun, right? And just the sun as a burp, just a
Yeah.
burp
Yeah.
of just spit out, you know, this plasma towards us. And that was enough to create this massive solar storm. And so that's why I looked at, okay, when is going to be the next alignment of planet like that? And December 21st, 2033, there's going to be even a greater alignment.
Wow.
And also on December 21st, which is the winter solstice,
Yeah. Yeah.
at the winter solstice, people don't know that the sun is the closest to the earth. So it has
Uh-huh.
the maximum amount of gravitational impact on planet earth.
Wow.
So all these planets will be aligned, and the sun will be the closest to the Earth, and the moon is aligned, and in the center of our galaxy, which has this massive black holes. So there could be a possibility of planetary change, and I identified other dates as well. So I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be alarmist here. I'm just saying that we can learn from the past, and using technology we have today, we can forecast probably some changes that may happen. I'm not saying there's going to be a pole shift, there can be something else, but
Yeah.
we should start paying attention to this. And it's all connected to this mathematics too that we talked about today. It's all and it's encoded in these ancient sacred sites as well, all these cycles that they're trying to
Wow.
warn us about.
Well, bring some of that up next time. That may be an attractor to get people to watch. They go, holy cow, you hear about this that 2020 33, and then you bring in you put that, but then you put the other stuff that teaches them before you get to that. So it's like it's dragging them in. It's like very interesting, very interesting. I look at that as well, like these dates, like
Mm.
especially with the atomic nuclear stuff. When you take a look at the big nuclear events and UFO events, you see these almost direct, like Travis Walton. When Travis Walton was abducted, there was UFOs over nuclear weapons storage areas or nuclear bunkers every single night he was gone. And there's like these things that it's like, there's no way this is a coincidence. And so I'd like you to put some of that stuff in the next one. And I'm just fascinated with your work, Jimmy. It's like I'm just kind of sad that we haven't got that much thing. But then, I mean, if it's 10,000 years to get where we are and to for you to understand this, it could maybe another 10,000 years before people accept this. But it's exciting because I know that's why I asked you about how you feel, because I have these as well, where you get something and it's difference between believing and knowing. When you have this knowing and oh, this is right. It's like, oh, it just sort of just all fits together, and they call it a knowing. So I can relate to you, is because I've had that as well. And until you've had that, you don't understand what that means. It's just it's not belief. It's you've caught something that for a fact is true.
Oh, totally. And that's a bit why in the current society, because of the work and people are busy, they're distracted with TV and all kind of stuff. They're not listening anymore to
Yeah,
themselves, right? We just need this quiet moment. It's a feeling, actually. The way I'm receiving the information is like it's a heart energy feeling, and as you said, it's a knowing. It's just a knowing, and uh, when I try it on calculator machine, it works, right? And so it's just what it is, right? And so
yeah,
everybody has access to this. Everybody
yeah,
has access to this. It's not given to one individual or select individuals. It's there. We have this potential. It's just for us to remember the power that
yeah,
we have to tap into this, right? And the truth, everything is in front of us and it's available to us.
yeah. It's the idea that everything's in the field. Like you'll hear a lot of experiencers mention this, that and near death experience people, like 40% and 31% for near-death experience. Say at one point during the experience, they knew the answer to everything in the universe. And it's just a matter of getting through that veil, pulling it and taking it down, that everybody can access it. But it's you've found a way to pull it. And then when you get on the right track, then everything starts to cascade because you're on the right track, and suddenly everything makes sense and you go, I know where I am now. And whereas if you don't get on that track, nothing makes sense because you're added in step number one when you're supposed to subtract, and
Yeah.
you've gotten along. So it's just, to me, it's just a knowing for a fact that Jimmy is onto something pretty significant, and I'll do whatever I can to help promote this and spread it to the world, which is, I think, which your mission is to get it out there and get it into the cloud, into this, because the internet is basically nothing more than the Akashic record. It's a bunch
Yeah.
of consciousness sitting in front of computers uploading material, and then other people can go into the cloud and pull it down again.
Exactly, exactly, and that's how I see it. So there's an opportunity there. I do what I can. I do everything I can to upload this information into this
Yeah,
mass consciousness, and it's going to be available to people looking for this stuff. And you talk about knowing and having access to the field. Well, it's exactly right, because and that's why I use what I call a Schwarzschild metric in these equations. Is that the Schwarzschild metric calculates the diameter of black hole, or the singularity, right? And
yeah,
singularities are known to connect to everything in the universe, like all the hologram we live in, you know, it's one dot essentially. It's everything is one, right? So that oneness, that singularity, is represented by this equation, this Schwarzschild metric. And when we do this math and all the stuff we look at today, everything has a equivalency or connection to the singularity. It's like a
mhm,
umbilical cord, like we have to this
yeah,
source, to singularity, and it works mathematically, because when we do the calculation, it works, right? And so naturally, this mathematics leads to our connection to source, or
yeah,
connections to the field, and it
yeah.
works mathematically perfectly at very high accuracy.
Beautiful. You've proved Atman equals Brahman. It's a key principle. I mean, I remember Desta, she did some channeling, and she said she could tell, she can't really tell what she's typing, but she would know that oneness was always being discussed because they wanted it capitalized. So always like oneness, oneness. She's capitalizing it all the time. She knew they were talking about oneness, and that is the key message. It's this idea, it's a singularity. It's all just one thing,
Mhm.
and eventually we'll get it. But it's exciting, probably for you as for me, is when you know that you're on the leading edge. That's what I always tell people. Like, if you're you got to realize you're in the Super Bowl. You're in the biggest game that ever got played, and you could have been, some poor people, a refugee with no place to go and no place to live, and no country and nothing, and you got to play the game just the same as me, and you got to feel honored that you got to play this game.
Totally. It's exciting. It's an honor.
Yeah,
It's an awakening experience. The biggest, greatest awakening I could imagine.
yeah,
And I trust the system. Look, sometimes I speak with Gary, and I cannot recommend more the work of Gary to everyone to look into. Gary has an amazing body of work that needs to be shared with the world as well. There's
yeah,
so much important information there. And sometimes Gary, well, is a bit discouraged because the general public is not picking up
yeah,
fast enough on this stuff, right? But I kind of trust to, and it's a challenge even for myself sometimes, but I trust that the universe will make things happen at the right
yeah,
time, right? There's a
yeah,
right time to
yeah,
do things. And as I was saying to Gary, look at like this intelligence, the Rendlesham, if we believe the code that it was, maybe a future human, a future civilization at the year 8100 in the future, they must have made sure that the information they communicated will be decoded by somebody or more people at
yeah.
some point at the right time, and that information will percolate,
Mhm.
correctly, right? They must have planned for this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have
Yeah,
spent their energy and time to do this. They had to know that people will decode it at the
yeah,
right time
yeah,
and information will come
yeah.
out. So I trust the system. I trust that the stuff is going to come out at the right time, will be recognized and be utilized for the good of the humanity, really. I think it's really can free us in terms of our civilization.
And okay, so thanks for what you do, and as again, it's an honor to have been a part of your little mission on Earth. And well, let's do it again. I'll send you So we'll message back and forth. We'll get a date and we'll announce it on Facebook, and we'll do whatever we can to put it out there. And whoever is ready to read it or see it, will see it.
Well, thank you, Grant, and the honor
Yeah.
is mine. Really, it's a great
Beautiful.
opportunity to share the information. So thanks so much again.
Okay.
We'll do it again.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye bye.